Hello and welcome in my next tutorial. In this tutorial, I will show you how to achieve this Damascus steel material in Octane Renderer. Let's first now create the new material. Go to Create, Extensions for the Octane and Octane material, and let's drop it to your object. Let's double click on your material, change the material type to metallic, and BRDF model to GGX energy preserving. Click on the node editor, and right away, let's go to the basics and click on the material layer. Click on the material layer here and add the new diffuse layer. In the diffuse layer, we want to change the color into the full green. In the base material, let's change it all the way to red. Now we will create the pattern that will drive all this Damascus steel material. So click on the custom pattern here and click on the Voronoi smooth contours. Drag it out and connect it to the layer opacity. Now you want to add the transform and projection. Let's lower the projection here. Click at the Voronoi smooth contours and bump up the frequency. You can mess with the scale in the transform, so you can adjust the scale of the whole pattern to your needs and to your object. Once you are happy with the overall scale and pattern, go to the texture projection, change the mesh UV to distorted mesh UV. If you don't have UVs on your object, you want to click on your object, click right, type in UV, hover over the material tags, click at this icon, and here you want to go with either the box or automatic packaged UVs. Let's go with the automatic packaged UVs and click OK. And now we have new UVs for this object, so we can use the distorted mesh UV in Octane Renderer. I will revert it to the UVs I have, and in the texture projection, because we changed the texture projection to distorted mesh UVs, we have this new tabs here. We want to use the scale tab here. So let's click the scale to 1 and lower the scale range Y to 0.8. And now let's connect some kind of texture or noise to distort it. Let's go back here to Voronoi smooth contours and let's drop the Octane gradient after the Voronoi smooth contours. Right click on it and solo node. Now we can see the pattern better. In the noise that we connected to the texture projection, we can add the projection and transform, lower the scale of the noise. Let's change the camera so we can see better what's going on. And we can drag the scale range Y higher so the effect is less noticeable. Something like this. So without, very smooth, and with, we get this extra details all around. Now let's go to the Voronoi smooth contours and let's click on this glossy box here. This way we'll get the pattern we actually need for Damascus steel. And in the gradient here, we want to squeeze in the brightness like this. We can always go back and adjust it, and let's disable the solo node. Now we can see the difference between both the base material and the material layer. Let's disconnect the material layer now, and let's go to the diffuse and get rid of all the colors here, and go to the specular map and change the specular map all the way up. Add a bit of roughness, 0.3 in this case. Let's connect the material layer back to the base material. Let's get rid of the color here as well. Then change the layer type here to the metallic and BRDF model to GGX, energy preserving. We want to make it a bit darker here. And let's change the roughness to similar value as the base material. Now, let's disconnect the material type once more. Let's add the new Octane gradient here. Connect the Voronoi smooth contours to the gradient. And connect the gradient into the bump here, the material layer, and to the bump in the base material. We already can see where it's going. For now, let's just change the brightness of this slider to lower value, and we need to squeeze in those sliders again till we get this saddle effect. We can zoom in till we get this saddle effect of layers. We can adjust it to our needs at any time as well. Now let's connect the material layer back to it so we can see those two together. And we already can see we need to adjust a few things. We need to adjust the position of the gradient here. Now that we adjusted, we are already getting really good results here. Let's zoom out. I think the bump map is a bit too high, so I will lower this. Okay, that looks good. And now I'll show you how to get a bit more out of this material. So of course you can adjust all of those settings we set already, like the gradient here for example, or maybe the gradient here to get a bit better fall off on the material, just like this. Or you can adjust of course the pattern itself, the scale, or the scale of the distortion here, or the amount of distortion by lowering the scale range Y in the texture projection set to distorted mesh UV. And of course you can really make it way better if you just add a lot of textures here. Let me show you the comparison with the previous material I have here. Let's actually try to make it a bit closer to it. Definitely we need to squeeze in those settings here, like this. I can see it. Our pattern is a bit smaller, so let's adjust it as well. Maybe the scale of the distortion is too high, and maybe let's get a bit more variation here. And let's adjust maybe the bump we have here with the gradient. Something more like this maybe. Let's disconnect the material layer so we can see what's going on. That looks good. What else can we do? Oh yeah, and to actually make it way more interesting, you definitely want to add a bit of textures. Of course, this way it's the pattern will be not procedural anymore. Of course, if you want, you can mess with the Octane noise or the Cinema 4D noise to achieve the specific textures, but you probably want to save your time here and just drop some texture. So if we, for example, take the image texture here to the roughness, I will actually use the texture I have from the Grayscale Gorilla here, the texture. I will just drop it here, and yeah, we can just use those with the, let's say, Octane gradient and set those to specific values. We can also, for example, drop the mix here between the gradient and the bump, drop it to the texture, and maybe even use the same thing we have here and just change the amount to something like this. And we already have a bit more stuff going on. You can see if I zoom in, we have some bumps going on everywhere. We can change the scale of it and get a bit more realistic look. This actually requires a lot of tweaking from you, so I will just give you hints where you should mess with it. So definitely you can connect the texture to the roughness, mix the bump map of the pattern we have here, the Damascus steel pattern. You can mix it with the different bump map from texture. You can connect it to the roughness here as well. Maybe just do the same thing you did here with the bump map. And you can add, if you want, the clear code, which if I show my previous example here, there is a bit of clear code on this side, which of course in real life you will definitely don't have clear code on the knife, but it's just my artistic direction here. So I will go back here and show you how you can get the clear code. It's of course the same way you can add it on the car paints. Basically go to the material layer, add the layer group here and add two specular layers, delete the one on the top and connect our previous material layer we had here and change the camera so we can see the reflections. And you can bump up the EOR, you can change the, of course, the BRDF model to GGX energy preserving, change the roughness to maybe a bit more. So really cool stuff here. It just adds a bit of this shiny look to it. If I store the render buffer here, we can see without and with, it just gives the reflection on top of steel we have here. We don't really need those in many situations. It's just extra thing you definitely want to consider. You can also connect Voronoi smooth contours from here to film with and get really crazy stuff. You can control it by applying the color correction between the film width and the Voronoi and adjust the brightness in the color correction. This way you can get different results like this. Also, I will show you one more trick with the film width here. If you add the curvature or the dirt, let's solve now this, and you can invert them normals. Let's change it to self maybe, or actually let's leave it on all. Let's just bump it up slightly and let's disable the solo node, and we get this really cool effect here, which looks almost like if we burn the edges of the knife, which is really cool, and we can adjust it in a lot of ways. Okay, I think that's it for this tutorial. That's the way you can get the Damascus steel material, along with how you can adjust it and add a lot of cool extra details to your project. Thank you all for watching. Please check my Instagram and subscribe to this channel. My goal is to upload one tutorial a week, so subscribing and following me on Instagram can help you definitely be up to date with my videos. Please ask me more questions in the comment section if you didn't understand certain parts of my tutorial, and if you want you can give me some ideas about what I should do tutorial about, and I will try to cover it. Yeah, I think that's it. See ya.